Libra ascendant, Libra rising. How are you doing, my friend? Take a look at some of the December energies, but we're going to then focus on your January. We're going to walk through those energetic waters together, hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, face what's there, hear the knowledge, the downloads, navigate strategically. What we have is an eclipse in mid-December. When we talk about how we work and how we operate and function in the world, Libra energy, it all comes down to you. It all comes down to the art of compromise, the art of knowing how to be the diplomat, how to be the person that understands this, and how to be the person at the same time who understands this, how to understand the two opposing sides, speak to this side and how to speak to this side, how to remain confident in who you are without sacrificing your peace, your last days of 2020 and your 2021 for January and a little bit of February. We're going to talk about Saturn and Jupiter being conjunct. Everybody's talking about it. They're calling it the Great Conjunction. And we're going to see where this happens in your life. This is the big thing, right? It's like, okay, so I'm hearing all this, but what does that mean to me? How does that look in my life? Where does that play out anyway? Our minds are touching, where our souls are communicating. Libra and Ascendant, come in, sit down, relax. Let me get you some coffee. Let me get you some tea. I got some cookies baking in the oven. What do you like? Do you like cream, some sugar? Do you like it just plain? Do you like it straight? Let's see what the future holds for us. Ready, Libra? December is an interesting month because we want good news, right? We want to hear that the virus and that it's under control. We want to hear about the vaccine. We want to hear what's happening with that exactly. We want to hear about the money. When are we going to get some relief, right? We are just everyday Joes and we're thinking, okay, I'm out of work or I'm in work or they've just laid off or I'm still catching up. I'm still behind. And all of a sudden it's the holidays and it's like, whoa, what do we do now, right? How's it looking for me coming the new year when it's a time where I'm usually faced with even more bills? So what I'm seeing astrologically, Libra, is that we do have some not so fun energies because the planet Mars is in the sign of Aries still, and it's going to be moving Aries out of Aries in January. Actually, January of 2021, like January 5th, Mars will be leaving Arian energy. Now, this is extremely important for you and for any other cardinal signs, okay? And so to back it up a little bit, the cardinal signs are Aries energy, Libra energy, Cancer, and Capricorn, okay? So we've got Aries at one end. Yeah, that's my lighter at Ben's. I was going to pretend I was Superwoman. We've got Aries at one end and Libra's at the exact opposite of Arian energy. Okay, so Libran energy is we energy. It's you and me. Aries energy is just plain old me. It's all about the me, right? It's I. Then we have Cancer and Capricorn, right? Cancer is family and home and emotions, emotional security. Capricorn is opposite of that. Or I can go like that. Capricorn is opposite of that. And so opposite of home and emotions and emotional security is financial security, is professional career, right? It's job. It's my worldly ambitions. It's the opposite of my home. It's when I go out into the world. Those are the cardinal energies. It's pretty important to understand the cardinal energies because you are a cardinal sign. And cardinal energies, they create these 90-degree angles. They form a square, right? And so squares are most likely, typically, uncomfortable. There are some people that even though they're uncomfortable, a lot of astrologers actually say this is a great opportunity for growth because anytime we're squared and we're angled up in that way, there's tension, there's testing. And so we're forced to do something differently. We're being challenged. It's like, oh, you're making this really uncomfortable for me, so I got to really think to be able to talk to somebody. I got to think to be able to maneuver. I got to say, wait a minute, this isn't working, and then I got to think of more ways to get something done. And so that's the testing and the tension and the squaring up. And it's coming from Mars, but it's not just Mars. It's also Pluto. And this happens in the month of December. But the good news is that come right in the beginning of January, right? January 5th, Mars is leaving the Aryan energy. It leaves cardinal energy. And when Mars leaves cardinal energy, that means it will no longer be sending those tension and testing and ready to fight angles to the other cardinal energies. Okay. And so let me tell you where this has been in your life. And you've been dealing with this on an intense level for the last 6 months, because Mars has been in Aries energy for the last 6 months. And if you don't know, Mars in the sign of Aries is very combative, refuses to back down, not only says I'm about fighting and I look like I'm ready to fight, it will instigate the fight. It says, I'm not taking this sitting down. I will stand up. Not to mention we have some other things happening in the sign of Aries, some other planetary bodies, celestial bodies, which make this Martian time more willing to fight. It's a revolutionary type of energy. And we pinpoint that on this celestial body that we call Eris, E-R-I-S. It's a feminine energy. It's like a sister of Mars, actually. She's tired of being overlooked. She's tired of not being heard. She's tired of being told to sit in the back seat, to be quiet. And so Mars is conjunct that planetary body. And what that means is there's more of this fight mentality, and it exactly squares the Plutonian energy. So to explain, so now that you know like the possibilities and the inclinations and the impressions that these particular cardinal planets put on us, we're going to talk about where this has been happening in your life, okay? Libra energy, this is you in your first house, which represents me and I, and that's your cardinal energy, right? In your first house. Your next set of cardinal energy is in your fourth house, which is your home. You have Capricorn there. And so Capricorn in the home is your tangible world. It is your physical home, right? It's the objects in your physical home. It's don't touch that. That's mine, right? Like that's important to me. So typically when someone's got Capricorn energy in the home like that, it means that material things give you emotional satisfaction. Your seventh house is your significant one-on-one relationships. And this is where you have your Aries energy. This is where you have your we energy. So when you're talking with people and relating, this is the house of marriage, by the way, there is a large aspect of yourself where you realize, okay, I know this is about we, but I cannot let myself be stifled. I have to make sure that I speak up for me, that I make sure that my needs in this relationship are brought about and that I speak up for them. And typically, because Mars has been here in the last 6 months for you, this has actually been helpful because you likely, depending upon other things in your chart, you could have very likely have been an individual that in significant one-on-one partnerships, many times you stayed quiet. Again, Eris has been in this placement, and Eris is that female energy, the female version of Mars, who says, who's been told to be quiet and who had just been okay with being quiet, was like, okay, because it's a world that we live in, right? Where we've been living in, where it's been, it's been this non-matriarchal energy, and non-matriarchal is out of balance, right? When we get back towards the matriarch energies, it's more of a balance of the masculine and the feminine. But because we've been in this non-supportive energy for feminine energy, right? Having Mars in your seventh house has given your Eris a voice. And it's given you the ability to find your voice and to speak up in significant one-on-one relationships. And it doesn't mean you had to be combative, although there could have been times where someone was like, okay, I went there, I said that, I won't do that again, right? Because all of a sudden they heard your voice for the first time. I'm not sure how you've been feeling in 2020, but for many Libra ascendants, this has been a day of finding the voice inside of me, the little voice inside of me, the feminine voice inside of me, where I'm able to stand up and speak up for myself. And so I actually like that. However, because the seventh house squares your fourth house, right? This is my home and my significant one-on-one relationships. Also understand that seventh house energy can represent any time you are relating with another person in your life. Doesn't have to be your marriage partner, but someone else who is significant for you in your life, okay? And so what that would mean is that if they're significant for you in your life and Mars has been there for the last 6 months, there may have been some arguments where you may have cut ties with people. There may have been times where you bit your lip in the past, and at this time in the last 6 months, you just decided enough is enough, right? The gloves came off and you said what you had to say, right? Because it doesn't have to be like this, but it definitely could be a verbal battle. And that would have been the seventh house, okay? But seventh house, significant one-on-one relationships, and in the home, right? There's that angling energy. So it means it's taken a lot of work at home. It means that people who are important to you, who felt like family or who feel or who are family, there's just been a lot of additional work, a lot of layers of compromise, and at the same time, allowing your voice to be heard. And so that's a tricky balance, right? A tricky thing. And then we go to your 10th house, because that's where your next cardinal energy is. And this is your goals, your professional goals. This is your work world, right? This is how you show up professionally in the world, your career, your highest ambitions, financial, material ambitions. You have Cancer energy up there, okay? And so we're focusing on this Cancer energy because there's going to be a full moon at the end of December. And the full moon at the end of December is at 9 degrees in the sign of Cancer, okay? And 9 degrees at the sign of Cancer, right there at your midheaven. And if you don't know like your MC degrees, you might want to find out what they are, because if it matches, if it's within a 2-degree orb of this 9 degrees, which would mean 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? 2 degrees before and 2 degrees after. It would mean that when we have a full moon, right? And it's in the sign of Cancer, Cancer rules the full moon. What this represents on a small scale is very personal and private. It's your family. All right. It's your homes. It's your ambitions for family. It's your ambitions for home, but it's also ambitions for the world, for the people that live in the world, for the public. The moon is the ruler of this full moon at the end of December. And the moon being the ruler on a large scale, the macro meaning is the public, is the people. And so you have this very strong humanitarian sense about you, because you hold the people, the ambitions for the people, the good of the people is in your midheaven. That is your star. That is what you look up to. And so Librans, I get along really well with, right? There's this understanding that we have about the greater good for all involved. Now, I hear you. You might be saying, gee, I'm not sure what you're talking about. There's a whole lot of things you said that are confusing, and that's okay. I get it. I apologize. I am striving. Trust me, I'm working on trying to share this knowledge, share this information, share what comes through in a way where it sounds more day to day, right? I'm trying to get rid of the terms and the lingo. So, with that said, the full moon time represents a possibility of additional stress and tension. So that's December 30th, okay? Now, there is an eclipse that happened mid-month, all right? And I'm not sure when you're going to see this video. I pray to God I have it edited and in your hands before then. It's a possibility I may not. So I'm going to go over this for you. I'm going to tell you where the eclipse happened in your life, okay? The eclipse was at 23 degrees of Sagittarius energy. So your Sagittarian energy is in your third house. Your third house is your thinking, the ways you talk and relate and communicate. You have Sagittarius energy there. So this is a great placement for the teacher, a great placement for someone who feels very strongly they should be teaching. And if you're not teaching, you're selling. Because it's the same thing in essence. A teacher gets in the classroom and they have to sell the material to the student. They have to make it appealing, right? Sometimes people don't understand when I say this, but it makes sense, right? Because it's Sagittarius energy in the third house. Sagittarius has always got this idea that it knows more, that it's got this wisdom that it must share, that it must radiate and release. And in the third house is all about talking and relating and communicating, right? It is also the house of the digital world now, right? It's Gemini ruled energy, the third house typically. And yes, we have to weave all these meanings together, which is why you get an astrologer, because who is crazy enough to want to have to take all these different things and then weave all those meanings together? It is pretty insane. Third house is Gemini energy. So when we think about the third, it's relating, it's communicating, it's keeping track of information, it's sharing that information. It's the news, it's the media, it's radio, it is the internet, it is social media. It's Gemini energy. It's talking with the hands, right? We first started doing this long time ago, right? We had our ancient typewriters in front of us. We started doing this. But before typewriters, what were they doing, right? They were writing on papyrus, right? Or whatever. Either way, the hands were involved. And even today, using digital devices, we are still using our hands in some way. And that's Gemini energy. Gemini energy, by the way, is also the lungs in the body. So keep that in mind, because the lungs has been a huge impact, a huge part of this pandemic energy. And that's Neptune up in the sky, the transiting Neptune squaring the transiting north node in Gemini energy. And so that's that 90-degree angle. And it creates difficulties with respiratory issues. Now, the eclipse at 23 degrees Sagittarius in your third house, this is a new beginning. This is a new beginning. And see if you have something there around those degrees. Again, 2 degrees before, 2 degrees after. So we're talking 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 degrees. If you got something there, you've got a big, bold, brand new beginning happening in your third house. So this is the house of trade and barter. It's the house of neighbors. It's the house of coworkers. Remember, sales, internet. All that is a big factor. There's something you're selling. There's something that you're saying, hey, I've got this. I see you've got that. You care to swap. There's this relating, and there is this, this other big word keeps coming in for me. It's a release of information. It's a release of wisdom, a release of knowledge, like flowing and pouring from you. And it could be your skills, learning a new skill, whatever that new skill was, because you've got an eclipse happening in your third house. And the third house is the house of learning a new skill, okay? These were the merchants, right? The back in the day when we could only talk face to face, you know, you go to your arts and crafts fair, right? Those are the merchants. You go to the mall, you still have people, you know, they're merchants, they're selling a good, they're selling a service. This Gemini energy is all about that, right? It's all about that. So digital marketing, social media, coworkers, networking. If you're in school, this is schoolmates. If you don't do any of that, if you're at home, these are your neighbors, right? Literally your neighbors. Also sibling energy. I say sibling energy because many of us have lots of folks in our lives that we work with, that we just come into contact with. And even though they're not blood relatives, right? Even though we're not related by blood, they feel like siblings in some way. And so a new beginning, you may be meeting new people. Let's break this down a little bit more. This is a south node eclipse. This is conjunct the south node. And so what that means is it's a big release. It's a release. It's a letting go to let something new in, right? Making room for the new. It's a belief that you're releasing, a belief that you're releasing, a belief that you're releasing about a skill set you had. You may have had a not so positive belief about yourself. And this has been a big thing for a lot of Libra ascendants, Libra risings, a new understanding, a new love of self, seeing these new qualities, traits, and characteristics and skill sets that you have that you didn't know you had, right? Because 2020 has brought about major changes in our lives, and we have been forced to relate differently. And so this takes me to your 9th house now, because we've got this eclipse in your 3rd house. But whenever there's an eclipse, you want to look at both sides. So you look at your Sagittarius energy at 23 and your Gemini energy at 23, because the Gemini energy is where the North Node is. The North Node is where you're headed. And this is your 9th house. The 9th house is teaching, but higher learning, which is college level teaching. The 9th house is religion, it's spirituality. The 9th house is traveling, it's wisdom, it's legalities, it's the courtroom, it's, lawyers, it's the government. The 9th house is foreign lands, foreign countries, foreign languages. The 9th house is my philosophy on life, my freedom. Freedom is a big word here. Flight, being free, the arrow taking off into the sky, the seeker, seeking higher knowledge, being able to be the teacher of higher knowledge. All this jives, and this is Gemini energy, and this is where you're headed. We will have the North Node in Gemini all the way until 2022. So get comfortable with your Gemini energy. Get comfortable with it. If you're not familiar, if you want more information, just comment to me below. I can take quick free peeks at your chart to give you more information, or to at least let you know if you've got something at these degrees and what you can expect. Let's hurry on off to January. January brings about a new time, because at the mid part of December, we had Jupiter and Saturn go like this, conjunct, literally conjunct each other. Some call this that big, great conjunction, okay? And some people have been tracking the location of when Saturn and Jupiter have been creating a conjunction. As a matter of fact, I saw this upside down Christmas tree, or the upside down angle of a triangle. What I like to say, okay, because some are calling this the Star of Bethlehem, right? Some are calling this big conjunction that. Which will be interesting. All we can do is observe after this day and observe what goes on, especially the births, those that are born under this star, under this major conjunction. I would love to see what happens. I know this is an interesting placement for me in my chart, and I would love to know if it's an interesting placement for you in your chart. What you're looking for is 0 degrees Aquarius, because Saturn and Jupiter line up exactly at 0 degrees Aquarius. Now, Aquarius represents the people. It represents the good for humanity. It represents information coming through from the cosmos, from deity. Now, I didn't mention this before, but I'm going to back up a little bit. When we had that eclipse in December, it was December 14th. And on that eclipse at 23 degrees Sagittarius, just a couple of days afterwards, the sun was going to be touching on the galactic center. The galactic center is at 27 degrees of Sag. Now, I know this is getting really complicated really fast, but the 27 degree mark, that galactic center, is considered the point of source for the galaxy that we live in. All right, that's how that part, that's what that's referred to as. And what I've observed is anytime something significant lines up to that, for me, I can only speak for myself, I have been very, very, very conscious of information that comes through. And it expands my brain. It expands my third eye. I can literally feel it opening and expanding even more. And I don't want to spend the time here, going into any more depth talking about me and my experiences, but it is a consciousness raising experience, because that Sagittarian energy, Jupiter is the ruler. All right, Jupiter rules it. And so wherever Jupiter is, it is all about learning. Jupiter/Sagittarius, okay, you can use these words interchangeably. Wherever it's located, it is all about information that comes through that helps us to connect in some way to that which we know not. Connecting in a way with something that is greater than what we can comprehend. Connecting in a way that helps me relate with that which is not me, but yet with that which is me. It's that moment of I am. It's that moment of divine is in me. It's that moment of that which created the universe and the cosmos and the stars, created everything and includes me, and that I am stardust. I am of the same thing, right? I contain the same ingredients. I have free will, though. I have consciousness. And so being a human being is this beautiful gift that we're given, because we retain our individuality. We can develop a personality. And I know I'm really going deep here. And so hopefully there's somebody that this is touching and that this is for. I had no intention of going this deep into this, but when we touch in with the galactic center, there is a consciousness raising experience. There's a consciousness raising expansion, and that is the sign of Jupiter / Sagittarius, expansion. It adds to things. And so having that there will be that event prior. Literally, it all happens within a 5-day period. Okay, it begins when we have the eclipse, but then just a couple of days later, we have the solstice. And the solstice is a day where the light comes in, where the light begins to grow, where we have more light than darkness. And at that moment, on that day, all right, we are feeling this wealth of knowledge coming through. And again, think about the time. This is like a 5-day gap where this occurs, where it's the eclipse, the sun hitting the galactic center, and then on the 19th / the 20th is the solstice, the winter solstice, where we have an increase, right? Where we have an increase of light over dark. Light is knowledge. Darkness is ignorance. It's lack of knowledge. And this is your third house, okay? It's your third house of communications. Remember, it's the Gemini energy. It's how you relate and communicate. But that all begins with your thought. How you think. You create by how you think. Right now, the power that we are given is such that we have to think and we have to do these intentions and we have to be very, very assertive and we have to be very consistent. We have to be very persistent to make that which we want come true, to make it manifest. But the whole point of making us do all this work, it seems laborious. We feel like, why can't we just have what we want already? Why can't what I simply think just appear? Because if we don't have the power of control over our thought, imagine the harm you could do. I want you to think about that because this is a big message for this kind of energy that we're going to be coming upon. We are graduating, okay? Remember, the Saturn conjunction, the big, great conjunction that's coming. Think about this. Think about the fact that the power of your mind, the power that you have, the fact that you are nothing, you are a degree of deity, okay? And if we understood our potency and our power that we literally do possess, imagine either the good or the harm that we could do with a mere thought. Therefore, like a surgeon is with a laser, we have to learn how to master the use of it. A great surgeon can walk in, but if he hasn't mastered the use of that laser, he could kill with it. He can kill with it, and with that very same laser, he can save a life. She can save a life. January, Mars moving into Taurus. It's leaving the Aries energy. I have to apologize because I'm having Saturn and Jupiter, when they do this thing that they're doing, the big conjunction, they're at the same time squaring my natal Mercury. So I'm having difficulty. And yeah, lots of different things coming in all at the same time, not to mention my own intellect, trying to understand what's coming in at the same time. So bear with me. Trust me, I'll be editing a lot of this. And that's the beauty of the editing. I can make sure that what I'm saying is intellectually sound. So we've got Mars now in Taurus. Where is this happening in your life? Let's find out. Okay, Libra, so January 2021, Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius, Mars in Taurus, Saturn and Jupiter in the sign of Aquarius is in your fifth house. Fifth house, what's it going to do? What's your fifth house about? Your fifth house is about children, fun, joy, creativity, anything that you create. It is also risk-taking. So it's the stock market, all right? But any other areas in which you take risk, right? Lots of folks consider dating a risk, like taking a risk with your body, how you have a good time with your body. You also have astrology there, which is fascinating because you have the sign of Aquarius in your fifth house. Now, I don't have the sign of Aquarius in my fifth house, but I do have the planet Uranus in my fifth house. And Uranus rules the sign of Aquarius. So we both have astrology energy in our fifth house, which means I find it fun, and I do. Otherwise, I couldn't do this, right? I wouldn't be able to just do this no matter what. When we think of these two together and them talking about that big conjunction that I talked about, I'm going to talk a little bit deeper about that here now. Because being in your fifth house, right? Your creations, any of your creations. I know a person who has this placement, same as you, right? And what they're finding out is that all of a sudden, the whole field of art opened up to them again in a new way. It's as though they are doing work that they've never done before, even though it's the same work. Does that make sense? They're still doing work, they're drawing, but they're doing it in a way where their work has grown, their work has elevated. And so they're really happy about that because for them, their art was very different, very unique, more of abstract, not realism, the exact opposite. And so for them, especially because they grew up in an artsy family, the artwork they did, and then they went on to college, right? Art classes, the person's teaching art right now, actually. But what happened was, it was as though the work as though people looked at their work like it wasn't good, like it was inferior in some way. And all of a sudden now, This person, by the way, also has Saturn in Aquarius, which means they have Saturn in their 5th house. So if you have that placement, this will be fascinating for you as well. And I would love to hear feedback from you about this too, to see if you're experiencing anything similar to this. And again, it doesn't have to be that you're an art teacher teaching art. It doesn't have to be something like that, but there can be a similarity because the sign of Aquarius is uniqueness. It says you're doing something creatively unique. That's Aquarian energy. The Aquarian energy is your individuality. It is the sign of the inventor. This is Nikola Tesla energy. Okay, that's the sign of Aquarius. This is getting information from creator, getting information from source. So the information you get, when you get it, depending upon other things in your chart, it's otherworldly. People don't understand, like, where did you come up with that idea, right? And that's because, well, it's really not yours. You know, it's that whole, is it mine or is it divine? But here's something I want to clarify. When something comes through you and you're able to make something out of it and you're able to do something with it and you're able to channel it, whether it's out of your mouth or from your hands, you've become a part of it. You're just as much responsible for it as for that which came through you. Yes, you were a channel for it, but it couldn't have come through and couldn't have expressed and been what it was if it wasn't for you. It needed your uniqueness, okay? So I don't care who you are, right? I don't care what you've done or what you haven't done. Each individual, the energies, the planetary bodies, that their emanations, the rays that come down, the frequencies that come through, they need each individual being, right? We each have a purpose. We each came with this beautiful desire, with this beautiful capabilities, with these beautiful traits of how we can uniquely contribute to humanity. And that is exactly what the sign of Aquarius represents. Remember, the sign of Uranus, the planet Uranus rules the sign of Aquarius, okay? So looking to find out where is your natal Uranus in your chart, where is it located, that will give you a great indicator as to fill up the meaning of the things in your 5th house for you. This is Aquarian energy. It's fixed air, all right? But this fixed air will send beautiful, sweet trines, okay? Beautiful, sweet trines to the other like elements. Well, your 5th and your 9th house are going to trine beautifully at this time. And if they trine beautifully, the 5th house is very creative. The 9th house is the house of the publisher. You'll be able to get publishing done. So whether you're publishing a book, whether you're writing a book, or maybe you're vlogging, right? Publishing videos on YouTube. I don't know what you're doing, right? But I would love to hear feedback. But it doesn't have to be just, doing books or vlogging or blogging. It's publishing anyway. You might be writing a screenplay, a manuscript. I mean, I don't know. There might be the limitations. It's limitlessness. Okay, that's the whole thing. It's about the possibilities are endless. There is no limitation because you're dealing with the energy of the universe. All right. Now this also sets up a beautiful trine to your 1st house, which is your physical body. So it's your 1st house, your 5th house, and your 9th house. This is time for you to shine, and you have this beautiful energy of support, full throttle support for the next year. And then Saturn will actually be in your 5th house for 2.5 years. For the next 2.5 years, starting this December, mid-December, Saturn is in your 5th house. Now, depending upon if you have other things angling it, like with squares, I'm not going to lie, there could be some difficulties coming because Saturn represents testing and restrictions. But hold on to the light. Hold on to the good that's coming. Hold on to the fact that it's going to perfectly angle your physical body, which gives you strength, which supports your backbone and your spine. It adds balance to your physical body and your beauty, right? And what's more beautiful than the symmetry? And the 9th house of teaching, and your 5th house, creativity fueling that 9th house, being able to share, being able to publish, being able to shine and to radiate. Now, let me talk about your Mars energy, okay? Mars in Taurus. Let's find out where's your Taurus energy. Your Taurus energy is in your 8th house, Libra. Mars moving out of your 7th. Mars gave difficulty and testing and stress. I talked about that in the beginning of the video. So now that it's leaving Arian energy, it's going into the 8th house, it activates. Wherever Mars goes, it starts something, because that's what Mars does. It's an initiator, and it's physical. It physically initiates. Your 8th house, this is the house of deeply bonded relationships, okay? And having Taurus there means the house of bonded relationships, and it values. It's all about what you value. What is Taurus value? Okay, so it's self, valuing of self, self-worth. Taurus is also my income, my tangible values. It's physical things too, like anything that you look at and you're like, ooh, shiny, I like that, right? Physical values, material values, but it's shared material values, okay? Because it's Taurus in the 8th house, meaning it's not just you, it's not just me, it's we, it's our values. So this could be your spouse's values, but this is the house of bonded energy. So what I like to say when I talk about bonded energy, these could be people that we are emotionally bonded to. These are people that we are bonded to by blood. And I say bonded to by blood because how many of us are bonded to somebody by blood, but we haven't talked to them in like 10 or 15 years? I shouldn't say everybody, but for a lot of folks, this is common. And it might not be that they're like that with a lot of people in their life, but there might be that, maybe you feel like you have no family. But what if you found out someone died and there's family, that all of a sudden you get a notice in the mail, you're notified that, your great blah, 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 blah left you some money. And you had no idea. You didn't even know them. But because you were bonded by blood, you were their last living relative. And you somehow got an inheritance. This is a possibility with Mars transiting through your 8th house. Now, Mars is in this location of your life for about 2 months. All right. So this is all of January and all of February. And I even think a little bit of March. The thing here is, what does it trine? That's what we're looking for, trines. So this is Earth energy, and your Earth energy lines up sweetly, okay? We've got your Mars, your Taurus energy in your 8th house, and then we've got your 12th house. You've got Virgo energy there, and that's interesting because that's a mysterious house. It's the I can connect the dots, and it's the work habits, the work routines, the health habits, health routines. It's also literally your physical health, but it's hidden. It's like you can't see it. So physical things, like people can't pinpoint ailments for you because they're in the hidden, because that's the 12th house energy. It has the ability to dissolve the material world. And so the details get very fuzzy, okay? And the connecting of the dots can be very fuzzy. And you may have experienced that in your life in a very real way, depending upon, if you have something in your 12th. But let's find your other Earth energy. Your other Earth energy, we know where it's at. It's in your 4th house. And this is home, this is family. So you've got your 12th house, your 4th house, and your 8th house. These are spiritual houses, by the way. These are watery houses, but you have Earth energy there. But it's fascinating because your tangible material world, the 8th house, connects right to your 4th house with family. Which means if you have family members that have money, now nobody wants to talk about, oh yeah, you're getting money because someone died. I don't mean to speak about that in a light way. And I apologize if I've offended anybody. I didn't mean it that way. I'm just saying that sometimes there's people we don't even know, and all of a sudden you get an inheritance. Like I had a friend who this happened to. They had a family relative that passed. This was probably 5 or 10 years ago. But recently, like within a few years ago, they got something in the mail, and they got some physical objects in the mail. And it was physical objects that didn't have really any value. It was more of they were just left over in the family, and this person was the only living relative, and so they received these things. And so they did receive something, and it was material, it was physical, it was tangible. And these were things that somebody at one time placed value on. And it could be something as simple as that. The only way to know if it's something bigger, you would have to have your personal chart looked at to see, like if you have big things happening, because then there would be some other telltale signature points in your chart to really tell you, to give you that kind of information. And so all I'm saying is, with Mars transiting through that 8th, typically what Mars does is Mars can be malefic. And so many times it can cause stress and tension. And so if we look to see the angles of your Mars energy, The stress and the tension that Mars is going to be receiving is your second house, which is money, okay, which is your values and your income, because that's your Scorpio energy. That's actually an opposition, actually. That means harder work. But we're going to look at your Leo energy, right, because that's the square. And so that's your 11th house of friendships. That's your Leo energy. That's also the digital world, because that's social media and the internet and all that. And then we have to look to your Aquarius energy, oddly enough, because that is also squaring it, right? It's fixed energy is what we're looking at. And so your fixed energy is your 5th house, all right? This is children, all right? So it's children and your creative projects, your creative endeavors. This is your art and your creativity. It is somehow squaring that 8th house. So there might be something by way of your children that causes stress and tension, and maybe your children need help at this time. Again, don't get overly concerned about this. Focus on the wonderful things. Focus on the coming in of the light, because I didn't mention this yet, but because when we have Jupiter and Saturn conjunct, what this does bring is we're going to get assistance. We're going to get some help. This is order being restored within the people. This is light being restored. Light is knowledge. This is science coming back in to help us out. So definitely a vaccine coming, and not just coming, but being available for the people. And I see that very strongly for the month of February, actually. I see so many planets in the sign of Aquarius in the month of February. There is so much support for the masses, so much support for the masses. And I say that because we have a Mercury retrograde in the sign of Aquarius at the butt end of January going into February. So what we're going to see is there's going to be some hiccups along the way with the virus and, transportation issues. And we already know from listening to the news, there's that's a big deal, keeping it's temperature sensitive. And so because we have Mercury is transportation, and so there's going to be hiccups. And so I'm going to have another video out that will give more detail about that, because that affects everybody. But for you, the Mercury retrograde will happen for you in your 5th house. Again, that's your Aquarian energy. So this is your children, your creativity. And so likely at that time, remember, that's the butt end of January and like 2-3 weeks into the month of February. But after the 3rd week of February, Mercury's done with the retrograde. It'll start going direct. And we've got so much energy in Aquarius that we will see the vaccine being rolled out in greater numbers, and it should be more beneficial. And when I have more information, when I look further down the line, I will definitely release it. The big boy energies for the next 2 years for you, especially the next year, in Aquarian energy is that it trines you. It adds ease to your relationships. It adds ease to your relationship with yourself, which is beautiful. It adds ease to your 9th house of higher learning and of teaching and of publishing and, creating a great work, something you've been working on, or maybe you've got all these supplies and things you've been working on, but it's just never come together. I see that it's coming together. I see it's coming together because this is knowledge and information coming through. That's what Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarian energy promises. It brings higher knowledge from the mind of God coming through to you in your house of creativity. And it trines you, your physical body, and it trines your 9th house of teaching, of publishing, of higher learning, of traveling long distances, of dealing with foreigners and foreign lands and foreign countries, of your philosophy on life, of reestablishing a sense of freedom and being able to travel. This is what I love. There is this sense of freedom and individuality that will come with this, even though there's going to be additional rules and parameters and definitely a lockdown that we're going to hear about, like the 20th of January, like as soon as that man gets into office, that's going to be the first thing that happens, because we have to establish order. And we're establishing order for the good for all involved. Focus on the future, because that is what the sign of Aquarius is. It's Jupiter and it's Aquarian energy and it's the future and it's let's rise, let's elevate, let's fly.